of America, and they don't like most of the Trump voters because they are Americans. And De Niro, how stupid is he without a script? Isn't that amazing? I used to think, wow, that guy's brilliant. But once you take the words away from him, he is so stupid. Then when he goes, impeachment will make America great again, and everybody's, how intellectually deprived he is. He's a coke-addled simpleton, without a script. It is hysterical.
Greg Gutfeld didn't just respond to Robert De Niro. He delivered a verbal knockout to a paper-thin tough guy persona. In less than 5 minutes, Gutfeld dismantled De Niro's self-important Hollywood routine, turning years of scripted outrage into punchlines sharper than De Niro's most recent movie critiques. It wasn't a discussion. It was a solo roast, where Gutfeld used humor, facts, and his trademark smirk to strip away the bravado and leave De Niro speechless. Last night, an elderly and disoriented man wandered off in New York. Fortunately, a group of smug elites spotted him rambling on the street, tossed some pants on him, and handed him a microphone. Oh my God, I just have to say, Trump kills me. Powerful stuff. Honestly, I was undecided about Trump, but then I thought, you know what? I should really hear out one of the most iconic cultural figures of our time. And that clenched fist at the end. Wow, that sealed the deal. He looked like he was lifting a 2-pound dumbbell in a Jenny Craig ad. Seriously, go back and watch it. It's adorable.
Last night, an elderly, confused man went missing in New York. Luckily, a band of self-satisfied elitists found him babbling on the street, threw some pants on him, gave him a stage.
Oh my God.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
It kills me. Talk about persuasive. Really, I was on the fence about Trump, but then I decided to really listen to one of the great generational leaders of American pop culture. And the clenched fist at the end, that really drove it home. It looked like he was pressing a 2-pound weight in a Jenny Craig commercial.
Oh my God.
Look at it again. It's so cute.
Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the bell icon for updates. It all kicked off the way it usually does, with De Niro once again trying out for the role of America's perpetually angry conscience. Another interview, another appearance, another grumpy, over-the-top outburst that made you question whether he's aiming for an Academy Award or a spot at the DNC. There he was, spewing hostility like someone genuinely insulted that Americans might dare to think for themselves without his approval.
Transgender. When the press asked her for comment, she said, "You talking to they, them?" Thank you.
Enter Gutfeld, calm, composed, wearing that signature smirk that basically says, I know this is going to get me roasted on Twitter, and I'm totally okay with it. He kicks things off with a jab. De Niro's less of an actor these days and more like a really loud Yelp review in human form, and not even a helpful one. More like one of those all-caps rants about a Starbucks lid being slightly crooked. The panel cracks up, but Gutfeld isn't finished. He goes on. These people don't recognize it themselves, and no one around them is calling it out. They're surrounded by yes men or people trying to sell them something, so they're completely blind to their own lack of self-awareness. That's why De Niro doesn't even realize what he's doing. His rage over Trump isn't grounded in logic, it's purely emotional. It's interesting. De Niro once portrayed legendary, multi-dimensional characters full of internal conflict. Now he's stuck playing one role, the bitter old guy shouting at the clouds, like the weather personally owes him an apology. And this wasn't just Gutfeld tossing out insults, he was holding up a mirror. What he reflected back to America was even funnier than any joke. The hard truth that Robert De Niro, once the gold standard of cool in cinema, had turned into that loud uncle who ruins every Thanksgiving dinner by quoting MSNBC like it's gospel. Gutfeld kept going, Look, I loved De Niro in Taxi Driver. I loved him in Goodfellas. But I'm starting to think the best acting he ever did was convincing us he had more range than just grumpy guy with clenched fists. Because now, every time he talks, it's like watching a parody of himself, something a politically obsessed high school drama club might have written. Then Gutfeld leaned in slightly, lowered his voice for emphasis. This is the same guy who recently said he wants to punch Trump in the face. Punch him. In the face. From a man who hasn't thrown a punch since his fight scenes needed 6 stunt doubles and a CGI team.
The star of Dirty Grandpa, Robert De Niro, getting censored by The View after raging like a bull who saw a red MAGA hat.
And they might think that it's going to make their life better, or they just want to, excuse my French, literally, it's almost like he wants to do the worst that he could possibly do to show this country.
Jesse, I find that he's smartest when they drop his audio.
But De Niro? He's ranting about a former president who's not even in office anymore, surrounded by people who agree with him and cheer like he just discovered the cure for cancer every time he drops an expletive. That's not bravery, that's political karaoke with a case of verbal Tourette's. And the funniest part? The media treats him like some kind of revolutionary. As if being a millionaire actor shouting the same talking points everyone else in Hollywood already believes somehow makes him Che Guevara with a SAG card. Come on. De Niro's version of rebellion is yelling at a teleprompter while wearing designer shoes that cost $4,000 and have zero grit. Greg just shakes his head, clearly entertained.
Of course, the real story is how accusations of Trump's nutty behavior always ends up with the accusers acting nuttier. De Niro calls Trump crazy as he goes crazier. Adam Schiff calls Trump a liar as he makes up quotes. Dems talk about undermining institutions as they try to undermine an election. But when asked for reasons why Trump shouldn't be president, all Bobby had were sputtering F-bombs. His resistance had run out of script.
Have you ever noticed how these Hollywood elites always claim to speak for the people? Yet when's the last time De Niro stood in line at the DMV, bought his own groceries, or flew coach without threatening to sue the pilot for breathing too loud? Greg takes a sip of coffee and lifts an eyebrow. De Niro says Trump supporters are dangerous. Dangerous. This is coming from a guy who made his career starring in films that glorify mobsters, hitmen, and lunatics. But now he thinks real danger is a guy in a red hat who wants lower taxes? That's a fascinating moral compass. Gutfeld isn't just throwing jabs. He's taking this apart layer by layer. Digging into celebrity outrage is like peeling a very loud onion. And if you don't nod in agreement, congrats, you're now considered a threat to decency, according to a man who once starred in Dirty Grandpa. The crowd bursts out laughing again as Gutfeld flashes a grin. And have you seen De Niro in interviews lately?
Somehow $4,000, 0-cent shoes. Greg shakes his head, amused.
It's a good time to reflect on how Americans fought and died so that we may enjoy the freedoms guaranteed to us by a democratic government. A government that, as President Lincoln said, of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye.
He doesn't really talk, he grumbles, mumbles. Every response sounds like a raccoon locked in an argument with a leaf blower. You ask him a basic question, and he reacts like you just declared war on his espresso machine. Gutfeld wraps up his takedown with flair. Here's the truth, Robert De Niro isn't furious because of Trump. He's furious because people stopped pretending his opinion actually matters. He's bitter because, deep down, he knows he peaked in the 90s and only gets booked on political panels when Sean Penn isn't available. Greg leans back and smiles like a guy who just cleared the board. De Niro thought he could waltz into the political arena and start swinging. And if he ever hears about this, chances are he'll shout into a camera, storm off a set, and demand justice, while someone off-screen quietly Googles how Gutfeld. S ratings stack up against De Niro's last 5 films. Because in the end, Greg didn't defeat De Niro by yelling louder.
Idiot is the president. The guy is a fool. Our government today, with the prompting of our baby-in-chief, has in chief, I call him.
That's some reliable source you got there. This is what moms call bad language, or what producers call great TV. The plan, get an irrational figure at peak derangement and goad him into snapping. It's like cabaret for the chronically obsessed.
As far as I can tell, of the world beyond what's right in front of him. He doesn't seem to grasp his purpose as president, which should be to unite the country, to serve the people, to heal, not to divide and rub salt in every wound. Clearly, De Niro has spent more time obsessing over Trump than over his own film choices lately. His current role selection seems to range somewhere between cinnamon and lobster.
Robert De Niro graced the knitting circle in hell known as The View, where he tried to link random thoughts into a sentence. Joy was there to wind him up, since he's played some of the most unredeemable characters.
You have played some of the most really unredeemable characters. Travis Bickle. Travis Bickle was a psychopathic taxi driver. Jake LaMotta, who used to beat his wife, and he was in The Raging Bull. Is Trump worse than they are?
To me, he is. He has no understanding that I can see of the outside world other than anything around him. He has no idea of what his purpose in life is as the president should be, and that is to pull the country together, to be for the people, to heal wounds, not to open them up and pour salt on them.
De Niro clearly has thought about this, more so than his career. His choice of roles is now down to cinnamon and lobster.
He did it by doing what De Niro used to excel at, telling the truth through performance. But this time, the script wasn't penned by Hollywood, it was reality. And De Niro? He wasn't the star, he was the punchline. Now here's the kicker. De Niro actually believes he's dangerous. Not in the I once played a violent sociopath kind of way, but more like the I skimmed a headline on Twitter and now I'm a revolutionary type of way. Look, I get it. De Niro wants to stay relevant. But at this point, the only thing he's really resisting is the passage of time and the urge to shout at clouds. This is a man who once demanded artistic integrity, yet now he's starring in sequels to movies that never deserved prequels, and blaming politics as if it's the reason his latest film bombed right after its release.
Instead, he's obsessed with these hypothetical what-ifs that Trump is going to keep hold on to power. None of these things are true.
The panel couldn't stop laughing. Not just because it was funny, but because it was painfully accurate. Then Greg shifts his tone just a bit, not serious, but mock serious, the kind that says, here comes a truth bomb disguised as a joke. You know the type. He says, De Niro keeps accusing Trump of being a bully and a threat to democracy. But Bob's whole political game plan is basically threatening to punch people and growling through interviews like he just got woken up from a nap. If that's moral superiority, then I must be a vegan life coach. Cue laughter. And he keeps rolling. Let's do the math, and here's the irony, the perfect roasted marshmallow of irony. The guy made his career playing men who broke rules, hated authority, and challenged the system. And now he's the same guy clutching his pearls because people don't agree with CNN. Gutfeld chuckles as he delivers the line.
He says it.
I just read that article that you sent me about the last nights of John Belushi and how De Niro was there and just basically partied with him and then split. And it's just like, that's now I just think of him as a really stupid guy.
Well, he's got The Irishman coming out. That looks pretty good.
De Niro used to play mobsters who handled their enemies by whacking them. Now he's threatening to punch people on cable news like that's somehow going to save the republic. I've seen tougher threats in Yelp reviews of Taco Bell. And while we're at it, let's talk about the acting. We all respect his legacy, but lately watching De Niro in interviews is like watching someone argue with a chair. The passion's there, sure, but so is the confusion, and the chair's clearly winning. Greg's expression is pure amusement. De Niro keeps going, like he's trying out for the role of angry man who's going to fix America. But every rant sounds like an extended scene from Meet the Three, the midlife crisis. At this point, even folks who agree with him politically are starting to say, Bob, maybe just take a nap, read a book, or scream into a pillow, anything but another interview where you sound like a furious audiobook stuck on shuffle. And still, Gutfeld isn't even mad. He's loving every second because roasting De Niro isn't hard. It's a sport.
To us by a democratic government. A government that, as President Lincoln said, of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms.
It's cardio, watching a grown man throw a tantrum in slow motion and pretending it's Shakespeare. Then Greg lands the final blow, the kind that doesn't just hit, it sticks. He says, De Niro thinks he's the conscience of America, but he's not. He's the voicemail you ignore, the commercial you skip, the grandpa at Thanksgiving who tells the same war story, except now he's wearing a resistance t-shirt and asking for a standing ovation. And here's the truth. De Niro didn't get crushed by Greg Gutfeld because of politics. He got crushed because he confused volume with value, rage with reason, and legacy with a free pass to say whatever he wants without being called out. But Greg called him out, with jokes sharper than De Niro's declining film reviews and more clarity than any press conference Bob's ever slurred through. De Niro brought anger, Gutfeld brought accuracy. De Niro brought emotion, Gutfeld brought facts with a punchline. And in the end, it wasn't just Greg who landed the knockout, it was reality. And De Niro didn't even see it coming.